There's a guy I know from YouTube. Let's call him Peter. Peter is a fervent Christian who believes the Bible is literally true. He sees many aspects of modern life that disagree with his deeply held beliefs, and he wants to communicate this to anyone who will listen. So he makes YouTube videos. The Bible has a timeline for the history of the earth that totals less than about 7,000 years, so he believes the earth is young. The Bible tells a different story of the origin of life, so he believes science is wrong about evolution. The Bible says the earth has corners and a dome, so he publishes videos trying to show how astronomy, cosmology, physics, and related sciences are wrong about the nature of the earth. The problem is, the facts aren't on his side. So because he doesn't understand science and in the service of his larger truth, his videos are a toxic mixture of bad science, logical fallacies, special pleading, and emotional manipulation. There's nothing in his work he couldn't correct by doing a little research, but the message serves his greater purpose, so he continues to make them despite all the contrary evidence and well-meaning corrections directed his way. Does this sound familiar? A flat earther named p-Brane has published 2 videos that he modestly claims falsify the Earth's rotation. Of course, they do nothing of the sort, as we'll see shortly. We'll apply the relevant science to address the general themes running through his videos, and we'll also look at the emotional manipulations he's using to sway you to his point of view. p-Brane's videos are based on a faulty premise. They're simple in their organization and simple to understand. They're repetitive. They misrepresent science when mentioning science at all, and make a bald-faced emotional appeal at the end. It's a classic Sunday sermon of pseudoscience in video form. p-Brane's observation consists of a water-filled balloon and a rubber ball soaked in colored water. Both objects are attached to a drill, which spins at an obviously rapid rate. In his first video, he shows the balloon spinning and its midsection bulging due to centrifugal force, as well as water flying off the rubber ball and spattering the wall. In the second video, the balloon's spin increases until it bursts. The conclusion he draws is that these objects represent the Earth and demonstrate that water would fly off the surface and the globe would shred itself if it were actually spinning as quickly as science claims. In my previous video, Flat Earth and the Spinning Ball Meme, I worked through the key equations that calculate and compare the gravitational and centrifugal forces involved in p-Brane's analogy. What we find is that his analogy is a very poor one. The balloon and ball spin much too quickly to serve as models for the Earth. He doesn't explain the difference between linear and angular velocity, and uses the wrong one to arrive at his conclusion. He also tries to convince you that the water on the spinning rubber ball shouldn't be spattering the wall, because gravity should be holding it in place. He fails to note that since the centrifugal force generated by the spinning ball is greater than the gravitational force on the water, it would be surprising if the water wasn't thrown from the ball's surface. At one point, he does acknowledge that he can't replicate the Earth, so his experiment isn't perfect, but doesn't bother to investigate how to size his experiment down from Earth scale to balloon scale. It involves some math, which I won't go into here, but he doesn't even attempt it. There would be no point, as we'll see. p-Brane is being dishonest here. It's not as if he doesn't know about centrifugal force. He acknowledges that it's what's causing the equatorial bulge. But he's strangely silent when addressing other aspects of his observation where it would be an important factor. If we're being generous, we can just barely assume he doesn't know what centrifugal force comes into play, but that stance beggars belief. If he's trying to make a video about science, he should know better. And I think he does know better. So why isn't he explaining this to you? Because it destroys his argument. An honest appraisal of the forces involved in his observation leads you inexorably to conclude that the ball on a drill is not at all like the Earth, and that the waters on the ball and in the Earth's oceans act as they should. He has no case if he puts all his cards on the table. So what is the science here? The equatorial radius is 21.36 kilometers greater than the polar radius, so there is indeed a bulge where the equatorial diameter is 42.72 kilometers greater than the diameter at the poles, a difference of 0.33% due to the centrifugal force generated by the Earth's rotation. p-Brane misrepresents science and its conclusions because he has to. For example, he claims that realists, meaning people who accept the globe as a fact, believe the bulge was set early in the Earth's formation and is unchanging. No realist believes that. We know the equatorial bulge changes with the Earth's rotational period. He also misrepresents the dimensions of the bulge. The likely response here is that he has to focus the viewer's attention appropriately. But let's compare. Here's the illustration p-Brane uses to highlight the equatorial bulge. Either his Earth is tiny, or he's exaggerating the bulge just a little bit. Here are two ellipses. One is a perfect circle, the other has the Earth's measured radii. Can you guess which is which? You can also see, incidentally, that the oceans at their deepest don't comprise a substantially large portion of the Earth's radius. Perhaps if we overlay the two illustrations, the difference will be more apparent. Perhaps not. By the time you get far enough away from the Earth to see its full face, you won't be able to distinguish its proportions from a perfect sphere. Clearly, the bulge isn't that big a deal. Let's return to the Earth's rotational speed. p-Brane discusses the physical consequences of the Earth's rotation, talking about the bulge in terms of a natural disaster and implying that any spin sufficient to cause the Earth to bulge that much would destroy the serenity of still mountain lakes and tear apart the Earth in the process. What he doesn't tell you is that the bulge has been there for billions of years. He implies that the bulge is so unstable that there's no way centrifugal force hasn't flung chunks of the Earth into space by now, much less allowed the continued existence of mountain lakes smooth as glass. We know the equatorial bulge varies with the Earth's rotational period. The Earth spun faster during the middle of the Ediacaran period some 600 million years ago, resulting in a large bulge. In fact, once the mass and dimensions of the Earth were set at 3 or 4 billion years ago, the primary factor driving the amount of centrifugal force affecting the planet's surface is the velocity of its rotation. We know from other evidence that the Earth's rotational period is slowed over time, but this happens very gradually, at an average rate of 1 hour per 200 million years. In short, the centrifugal force generated by the Earth's rotation was 1/3 greater than it is today, but still over 2 orders of magnitude too small to cause anything to leave the surface of the Earth. So rather than catastrophe, the Earth has survived even greater rotational speeds without tearing itself to shreds. His straw man fails. But p-Brane doesn't do these calculations. He just emphasizes the linear speed of the Earth's rotation and implies that this would wreak untold havoc if it were true. Another issue he has is with the idea that someone on the equator would experience a 2,000 mile per hour whipsaw every day as the Earth moves in its orbit around the sun while it rotates on its axis. His implicit analogy is to the spinning cups ride at the amusement park. The analogy fails because, again, the cups and the underlying spinning platform are moving much too quickly to serve as a model of the Earth. The scale of the Earth continues to baffle him. He is so scared of the numbers that the only figures he gives in both videos are the diameter of the Earth and the speed of its rotation. He does his level best to trigger your own sense of incredulity by convincing you that the Earth's rotation is at over 1,000 miles per hour is ridiculous. The numbers don't lie, though. It's p-Brane who's being ridiculous and deceptive. Scientists do the calculations, flat Earth shills play on your emotions. So, now comes the manipulative part. Most science videos don't use appeals to emotion. They don't need to. They have science on their side. But flat Earth videos don't have facts on their side. So they have to employ an emotional hook to reel you in. Whether it's an appeal to your faith, or your incredulity, or your distrust of authority, all flat Earth videos will try to engage your emotions. This is smart. It's very difficult to use mere facts to dislodge someone from a belief they have a strong emotional attachment to. In addition, a lot of the science related to flat Earth is esoteric or non-obvious. Flat Earth advocates are right that if you just believe your eyes naively, you'll tend to think the Earth is flat. The question is, are you naive? I've mentioned this to frame our discussion of the emotional appeals in p-Brane's videos. Here's the first example.
So, would we feel it? Well, actually, I'm going to surprise you and I'm going to say no. Because we'd all be dead.
Since we're not all dead, the Earth can't possibly be spinning like a rubber ball spiked on a drill bit. Well, his logic is fine, but his premise is faulty. Since we know from other evidence that the Earth is spinning, and we know the Earth's dimensions, we can calculate what the centrifugal force actually is. Clearly, the Earth is spinning, but not like a rubber ball on a drill. In case that was too nuanced, p-Brane drives the point home a few minutes later.
That means no life here and we'd all be dead.
It's a wonder he didn't have the stars fall out of the sky. Both of these vignettes are blatant appeals to fear. You don't want to be thrown off the surface of the Earth, do you? You don't want to drown under a mile of roiling ocean, do you? Well, this is what will happen if you believe the globe. Or so he would have you believe. Bear in mind the shape of the Earth isn't a belief. You either accept the fact or you don't. The reality is that these are not inevitable outcomes of accepting the spherical shape of the Earth. As I pointed out in my prior video, p-Brane's numbers don't add up. The Earth isn't spinning nearly as fast in a relative sense as he pretends it is. You're not in danger of being flung into space, and the Earth's rotation won't send any tsunamis crashing your way. He's trying to frighten you to hide the fact that the math doesn't work in his favor, so he has to scare you into believing him. For those of his viewers with a conspiratorial mindset, he slyly casts shade on notable scientists who disagree with his position.
And another one I get is like, who do you think you are, taking on the most brilliant minds that ever lived? I disagree. Maybe they weren't the most brilliant minds. Maybe they were the most brilliant deceivers. Maybe they were the best con men. They've presented a fairy tale for adults. That's what this is.
Or maybe you're just wrong and don't realize it. I'd like to introduce you to two other scientists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger. This next clip is a bit long, but bear with me.
And you know why they made this fairy tale up, because they wanted to make the Bible seem like a fairy tale. But the Bible's got it right. So read your King James Bible and believe it, and you'll get the truth. Leave some links to this. Let's end this. Start getting the globes out of classrooms. Imagine that. The paradigm shift is here. And all we can do now is let's celebrate. All right? Thank you so much, gang. Here we go. Let's pop some champagne. Yes. Happy days are here again. Paradigm shift. The world's about to change. The Great Awakening. It's all coming together. All right. Thanks so much. I'll see you around. p-Brane out for now. Thank you, subscribers. Thank you, everybody, all the Flat Earth video makers, Flat Earth commenters, all the great commenters. You know, I like commenting myself. I almost enjoy commenting more than making videos. I love getting into the comment threads and mixing it up. Because you got the truth on your side. It makes it easy. You know what I mean? So anyway, again, that's it. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll look forward to comments. I don't know how much patience I'll have for the Ball Earth gaslighters that come in here trying to trick everybody. You cannot debunk this. We live on an immovable, stationary plane. All right. Thank you so much for watching. There's only one thing left to do. Let's kick the ball out of here.
Another emotional manipulation he uses is the triumphalist ending. The cheering crowd, the finality of his language, the image of kicking the ball away are all sensory cues meant to give you a feeling of relief after the scare he tried to put into you. His message is, all that scary stuff isn't happening because the world isn't the way they say it is, so just put it out of your head. At least he's refreshingly honest in detailing his motivations. He's quite open about the fact that his primary objections are religious and not scientific in nature. He'd be perfectly content to accept the Earth's rotation if his interpretation of the Bible allowed for it. Basically, p-Brane is preaching a sermon. Like any good hellfire and damnation preacher, he shows you the consequences of your sins, and having frightened you, he shows you the path to salvation. Believe in the globe and you die. Cast the globe away and you'll live. But you're a thinking human being. You're smart enough to form your own opinions. How do you feel about being so obviously manipulated? What's p-Brane trying to hide by scaring you into his way of thinking? Did you notice that there's not one instance of actual data-driven analysis in either of his videos? Why doesn't he just give you all the facts and let you decide for yourself? I'll tell you why. Because he knows the facts and data contradict his position. He has to lie and to manipulate your emotions in order to convince you, because that's all he has.